The first time a Navy SEAL laughed at my dog tags, I almost thanked him. Because in that exact moment, I realized something powerful. He had no idea who I was. And when someone underestimates you that completely, you don't have to fight them. You just have to let them discover the truth. My name is Commander Reagan Mitchell. I was 31 years old when I earned the call sign Phantom 6. Not because I pulled a trigger. Not because I kicked down a door. But because I rerouted a compromised communications network in 90 seconds and pulled 6 SEALs out of an ambush in Yemen that would have ended their lives. 6 men walked out alive because I refused to panic. For years, I believed that kind of competence spoke for itself. I was wrong. If you've ever been dismissed by someone who should have known better, stay with me. Because what happened next changed the trajectory of my entire career. I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, in a house where silence meant discipline, not distance. My father was a submarine officer. When he came home from deployment, he didn't tell dramatic stories. He folded his uniform carefully. He spoke precisely. He moved like someone who understood that control was survival. My mother was a trauma surgeon for the Coast Guard. She stitched open wounds before sunrise and never once raised her voice in the operating room. I learned early that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most capable. Precision beats volume. Every time. I joined ROTC at 17. Not to rebel. Not to prove something. It felt inevitable. While other cadets tried to dominate formations, I gravitated towards signals intelligence. Encryption fascinated me. The invisible conversations between satellites, drones, and ground teams. The idea that war could be decided by data moving through space. I wasn't interested in being seen. I was interested in being effective. Cyber intelligence became my language. Tactical data fusion became my craft. I studied how information traveled through hostile environments and how quickly it could collapse when compromised. Most people never think about the fragility of a communications network. I did. Constantly. Yemen was my turning point. I was 26, newly promoted to lieutenant, embedded with a SEAL team conducting counterinsurgency operations near Aden. The team commander, Captain Marcus Kane, believed intelligence officers shouldn't stay behind screens thousands of miles away. He wanted us close to the field, close enough to feel the consequences of our analysis. I respected that. For 9 months, I lived inside the rhythm of that team. I learned how they communicated under stress. I learned how their breathing changed over comms when something felt wrong. I learned that one corrupted frequency could turn confidence into chaos. The operation that earned me my call sign wasn't dramatic from the outside. No explosions on camera. No heroic speeches. Just a slow, dangerous unraveling. Kane's team was moving through a dense urban sector hunting a high-value target when I saw something spike in our network traffic. Their encrypted channel wasn't secure anymore. Someone had cracked it. Every transmission they made was being mirrored. Which meant every move they made was being anticipated. I ran 3 confirmations. All identical. They were walking into a funnel. I had 90 seconds before the trap closed. 90 seconds before 6 body bags came home instead of 6 men. I didn't ask permission. I ghost routed their entire communications stack through a secondary architecture I'd quietly built weeks earlier. It was experimental. Risky. But it worked. The hostile listeners heard static. Kane's team heard my voice. Calm. Direct. I gave them alternate coordinates, identified 3 hostile positions, and rerouted their extraction path. They pivoted. They cleared the threat. They walked out alive. After the operation, Kane found me in the operations tent. He didn't smile. He didn't hug me. He just looked at me and said, "You just pulled 6 ghosts out of the grave. Phantom 6. That's yours." The name stuck. Within the special operations community, reputations move quietly but thoroughly. I became the intelligence officer teams requested by name. The one who could see the invisible threats before they materialized. I didn't need applause. The work was enough. For 3 years, I operated like that. Somalia. Border regions. Forward bases with 4 hours of sleep and endless signal streams. I saved 3 more teams by identifying patterns others missed. The digital footprint of planning meetings. The surge in cell tower activity before coordinated strikes. The silence that shouldn't have been there. Every time, I was certain before I acted. And every time, certainty saved lives. Then I rotated stateside to Coronado. That's where things shifted. Overseas, competence is currency. Under fire, nobody cares about ego. But back home, in bars and briefing rooms without incoming threats, hierarchy becomes performance. Stories become louder than statistics. And people forget what actually kept them alive. At first, it was subtle. Comments in meetings. "Intel's got it covered," said with a dismissive wave. Jokes about analysts never leaving air-conditioned rooms. I let it go. Professionalism is armor. But then Petty Officer Logan Hayes arrived. Loud. Charismatic. The kind of operator who filled space with confidence. He was good at his job. I won't deny that. But he was better at making sure everyone knew it. He started making jokes about intelligence work. About call signs. About desk warriors. Always just sharp enough to sting. Always surrounded by laughter. What hurt wasn't Hayes. It was Captain Kane sitting there. Silent. The same man who'd given me my call sign. The same man who'd trusted my voice when his life depended on it. He didn't join the jokes. But he didn't stop them either. Silence can be louder than ridicule. The night everything changed was at a bar called The Anchor. I almost didn't go. But a colleague invited me for a farewell drink before deployment. I wore jeans and a black blouse. My dog tags were under my shirt, habit from deployment days. Hayes spotted the chain when it slipped free. He grinned. "No way. You military?" Loud enough for the table to turn. I didn't answer. "Got a call sign, sweetheart?" The table laughed. Captain Kane stared at his drink. That's when I understood something. They had separated the legend from the woman. Phantom 6 existed in their stories. But they'd never connected her to me. So I set my glass down. Turned slightly. Looked Hayes in the eyes. And in the same tone I'd use rerouting comms under fire, I said, "Phantom 6. The air changed. Hayes' smile froze. Kane's head snapped up. Every SEAL at that table suddenly looked like they'd just stepped on something fragile and realized it was glass. "You?" someone whispered. I didn't elaborate. I didn't explain. I didn't perform. I left a 20 on the bar and walked out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand respect. I just let the truth do what it does. And that was only the beginning. By Monday morning, half of Naval Special Warfare Command knew what had happened at the Anchor. The story spread the way military stories always do, fast, exaggerated, and slightly distorted. In some versions, I delivered a devastating speech. In others, I'd humiliated Logan Hayes in front of his entire team. None of that was true. All I'd done was state my call sign and walk away. But silence can be louder than a confrontation, and dignity can bruise egos more than anger ever could. I showed up to work at 0600 like I always did. Same uniform. Same composure. Same stack of intelligence briefs waiting on my desk. The difference wasn't me. The difference was how the hallway felt. Operators who had once brushed past me without eye contact now nodded. Briefings were quieter when I spoke. No one made jokes about desk warriors anymore. The room hadn't changed. The standards had. Commander Marcus Kane found me 2 days later. He knocked on my office door even though it was open. That told me everything. "Can we talk?" he asked. I didn't make it easy for him. "You already are." He closed the door and sat down. He looked older than he had in Yemen. Or maybe I just saw him more clearly now. "I should have shut it down months ago," he said. "Hayes. The jokes. All of it. I didn't rescue him from the discomfort." Silence is clarifying. "You didn't," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I didn't. And that's on me." He tried to frame it as cultural drift, as stateside dynamics being different, as operators decompressing. I didn't accept the explanation. "You taught them what was acceptable," I said calmly. "Every time you stayed quiet, you taught them intelligence work was optional." That landed. Kane had always believed he was a strong leader. Realizing he'd failed his own standard hurt more than anything I could have said. "How do I fix it?" he asked. "You don't fix it with words," I said. "You fix it with expectations. You correct it the next time it happens. Immediately. Publicly. Without hesitation." He nodded. He meant it. But I also understood something in that moment. His apology wasn't about me. It was about his own leadership. And that realization freed me from needing anything else from him. The shift inside the command was subtle but permanent. Intelligence officers were pulled into planning sessions earlier. My analysis was requested instead of tolerated. Logan Hayes avoided me for weeks. Then, unexpectedly, I received orders to report to Washington, D.C. Rear Admiral Victoria Hale wanted to see me personally. Hale oversaw Joint Special Operations intelligence at the strategic level. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I've read every after-action report attached to your deployments," she said. "Zero intelligence failures. Zero compromised communications. Multiple verified mission saves. That doesn't happen by accident." I kept my expression neutral. "No, ma'am." She leaned forward. "I'm creating a joint intelligence fusion cell. Multi-branch integration. Real-time battlefield analytics. I need someone who understands operators but isn't one. Someone who can stand in a room full of egos and not flinch." I understood what she was offering. Promotion. Authority. A direct reporting line to Flag Command. When would I assume command? I asked. Immediately. I accepted without hesitation. Excellence isn't about waiting to be invited. It's about being prepared when the invitation comes. I relocated within weeks. 20 intelligence officers under my command. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. Different cultures. Different communication styles. My job was to unify them into one operational mind. The work was relentless. Multi-theater monitoring. Signal intercepts. Pattern analysis. Drone coordination. Real-time battlefield validation. It felt like Yemen again, but on a larger scale. 6 weeks into the assignment, the unexpected happened. Logan Hayes walked into my office in full dress uniform. Petty Officer Hayes reporting as assigned field liaison, ma'am. I looked at him for a long moment before speaking. You requested this assignment? No, ma'am. I believed him. Someone higher had decided proximity would teach him something. Or test me. Are we going to have a problem? I asked evenly. No, ma'am. He hesitated. I owe you an apology. You've already given one indirectly. That wasn't enough. His voice wasn't loud now. It wasn't performative. I reduced your work to something it wasn't. I made assumptions. I was wrong. It was specific. That mattered. I nodded once. Accepted. Now sit down. We have work. Respect rebuilt through standards, not emotion. The operation that solidified everything came 2 months later. Intelligence indicated an imminent attack near the Syrian border. A marketplace. Civilian heavy. A drone strike team believed they had visual confirmation on the terror cell staging location. My analysis showed they were wrong. Their coordinates were off by 200 meters. 200 meters that separated a terrorist cell from a residential building. I had less than 90 seconds before authorization locked. Abort strike, I ordered over secure comms. Negative, came the response. Visual confirmed. Your visual is incorrect, I replied calmly. Cross-reference grid 14BR, signal triangulation confirms hostile cluster south-southwest. Abort now or you hit civilians. There was silence. Then tension. Then, finally, strike aborted. Retargeting. The corrected strike eliminated the cell. 0 civilian casualties. Mission success. After-action commendations followed. Admiral Hale called personally. You contradicted a strike commander in real time, she said. That takes certainty. It takes verification, I replied. Hayes found me later in the operations center. I would have taken the visual, he admitted. Most would, I said. That's why analysis exists. He nodded slowly. I understand now. That was the moment I knew the lesson had landed. Not because he respected me, but because he respected the work. Months later, Hayes was promoted to Chief Petty Officer. His recommendation letter cited improved integration with intelligence operations and mentorship emphasizing analytical respect. He sent me a note. Thank you for teaching me that competence outranks ego. I filed it away. Not triumphantly. Just factually. The real shift wasn't his apology. It wasn't the bar confrontation. It was what happened institutionally. Protocols changed. Intelligence integration became mandatory during pre-mission planning. Cultural expectations recalibrated. Respect wasn't granted to me personally. It was extended to the entire discipline. That's the difference between revenge and reform. 3 years into running the fusion cell, I was promoted to captain ahead of schedule. Admiral Hale pushed it through herself. You've redefined how we integrate intelligence into combat operations, she told me. You're not just running missions. You're shaping doctrine. But even as rank increased, the lesson stayed the same. You don't correct people with anger. You correct them with truth. And sometimes that truth is delivered in 2 words at a bar. And sometimes it's delivered through 3 years of flawless execution. The room doesn't change because you demand respect. It changes because your standards leave no alternative. And that realization prepared me for what came next. 3 years after the night at the Anchor, I stood in the Pentagon briefing room wearing eagles on my collar instead of oak leaves. Captain Reagan Mitchell, Director of Joint Naval Intelligence Integration. The promotion wasn't about rank. It was about reach. Instead of influencing one team at a time, I was now shaping how intelligence was embedded across entire theaters of operation. Policy replaced personality. Systems replaced stories. And that was exactly where real change happens. The fusion cell had become the gold standard. 0 intelligence failures. 0 civilian casualty incidents tied to misanalysis. Mission success rates measurably higher when our protocols were used. Data doesn't argue. It accumulates. And over time, it becomes undeniable. Admiral Hale called me into her office late one afternoon. "I'm recommending you for Rear Admiral," she said without ceremony. "You understand operational intelligence from the ground up. We need that at the flag level." I didn't react immediately. Not because I wasn't proud. Because I understood what it meant. Flag rank is visibility. It's politics. It's scrutiny. It's being the symbol whether you want to be or not. If confirmed, you'll oversee naval intelligence modernization, cyber integration, tactical fusion across global commands. I nodded once. "Then I'll make sure the systems outlast the stories." She smiled slightly. "That's why you're ready." The confirmation went through 6 months later. Rear Admiral Reagan Mitchell. I remember looking at the insignia and thinking about the bar. About Hayes' grin. About Kane staring at his drink. About the silence that followed when I said 2 words. None of that felt dramatic anymore. It felt instructive. The real victory wasn't that they recognized me. The real victory was that the institution evolved. Intelligence officers were no longer optional attendees in planning rooms. They were integrated from the beginning. Analytical veto authority was codified during strike authorization. Cultural bias doesn't disappear overnight. But policy forces behavior. And behavior reshapes culture. 5 years after that promotion, I stood at the Naval Academy delivering the keynote address to a graduating class. White uniforms stretched in rows beneath the summer sun. Young officers about to step into the same system I had navigated. I didn't tell the bar story. I didn't mention Phantom 6. Instead, I said this. You will work with people whose excellence is quiet. You will be tempted to overlook them because their competence doesn't perform for you. Don't make that mistake. The military doesn't succeed because of volume. It succeeds because of precision. I let the word settle. If you want to lead well, see the people who don't demand attention. The analysts. The technicians. The planners. They are the difference between success and catastrophe. Respect them before you are forced to. After the ceremony, a young intelligence ensign approached me. "Ma'am, I joined because I heard about you," she said. That never stops feeling surreal. "Don't join because of me," I told her gently. "Join because the work matters. Titles are outcomes. Standards are decisions." Years passed. Systems matured. I advanced again. Vice Admiral. Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence. Then Director. 30,000 personnel under the umbrella of policies shaped by lessons learned in dusty operations tents and loud California bars. The mythology of Phantom 6 faded, as myths always do. But the protocols remained. The integration standards remained. The expectation that intelligence work equals combat work remained. Logan Hayes retired as a chief with an exemplary record mentoring younger operators on respecting analytical teams. Kane commanded with distinction. He sent me a letter once before deploying again. "You were right," it said simply. That was enough. 10 years after the anchor, I visited Coronado for an inspection tour. The bar was still there. Different faces. Same wood grain counter. I stepped inside quietly. No one recognized me. No one needed to. I didn't come for vindication. I came to remind myself how small that moment actually was compared to what followed. A young SEAL at the counter was teasing an intelligence lieutenant about being the brain in the back. It wasn't cruel. But it was careless. Before I could say anything, another operator cut in. "Careful," he said casually. "Intel's why you're breathing." No fanfare. No speech. Just expectation. Culture. That's when I knew the work had taken root. I walked out smiling. 15 years after that night, I prepared to retire. Full honors. Ceremony. Speeches compressing decades into tidy narratives. They highlighted Yemen, Syria, policy reforms, promotions. They called me a pioneer, a trailblazer, a legend. I let them. Ceremonies need symbols. But in truth, my career wasn't built on one confrontation. It was built on thousands of small decisions. Choosing precision over pride. Choosing patience over ego. Choosing standards over validation. At the reception, Hayes approached me, gray at the temples now. "Admiral," he said. "I still tell the story." I raised an eyebrow. "I thought I told you to teach standards." He smiled. "That's what the story became." Good. That's what it was always meant to be. Later that evening, standing alone overlooking the Severn River, I thought about that young woman in the bar. 31. Quiet. Furious but controlled. Wanting vindication. She got something better. She got impact. Vindication feels good for a moment. Impact lasts decades. If you're watching this right now and you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, laughed at in a room where you knew you belonged, hear me clearly. You don't correct people with anger. You correct them with truth. Sometimes that truth is spoken in 2 words. Sometimes it's demonstrated across 30 years. But either way, you don't shrink. You don't perform for validation. You maintain your standard until ignoring it becomes impossible. So here's what I want to ask you. What's your Phantom 6 moment? What's the one fact about you that changes the room when it's finally spoken? When someone withholds respect, do you argue, or do you let results speak? Drop your story in the comments. I read them. If this resonated with you, if you believe quiet competence is stronger than loud ego, tap like. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs the reminder. Because there are more stories about boundaries, leadership, and reclaiming your worth coming every week. And remember this. Respect isn't something you demand. It's something your standards eventually make unavoidable.